Hello and welcome to the New Jersey IDD Youth Transition Conference, also known as the NJYTC. The NJYTC was created for youth and young adults who experience an intellectual and/or developmental disability, their caregivers, and the professionals who serve them. My name is Amy Jedele, and I have the privilege of working for Values into Action as the Director of Projects and Innovation. Today, I'm joined by our Executive Director, Marian Frattarola-Saulino. Marian is a disability ally, thought leader, and visionary in the disability community. Marian, thank you for meeting with me today to talk about the conference's mission, impact, and future direction, as well as sharing your expertise and insights with the transition community. Can you give us a little background and tell us about Values into Action and how you and Paul founded the organization?
Sure. Thank you, Amy. And let me just do a little shout out to you at first. Really want to say how much I appreciate you and the planning committee doing this conference. It's incredibly exciting each year as you embark on a new agenda and themes, and just to see this year's coming together is just it's humbling, but it's very, very exciting. So I really appreciate your vision, your drive, and your expertise in leading this. So happy to be a part of it. Paul is my husband and partner, and we started Values into Action New Jersey in 2007. We were one of the first 3 support coordination agencies that contracted with the New Jersey Division of Developmental Disabilities, or as many of us know it, DDD, or the division. And we were incredibly honored to be one of the first 3 and to work alongside our colleagues at the division, but more importantly, to work with people with disabilities and their families, many of whom were living in state centers. Our mandate as the support coordination agencies was to assist people in planning for and then helping them to move back into their neighborhoods and communities, and to be able to access the resources and the services there. While we did that, we helped a self-advocacy team comprised of people who were living in the developmental centers who named themselves the GO team, the Get Out team. And they really inspired the first years of our work in really centering us on the importance of always, always, always presuming competence in everyone that you meet, and in honoring a person's vision for themselves, in respecting and including the family's vision and the family's ideas and the choices that together people and their families want to make for themselves. So that's really what Values into Action New Jersey is about. In 2024, we are happy and honored to be serving over 600 people in the state of New Jersey, people living in all areas, in all communities, in all places in the Great Garden State. So thank you for having me, and hopefully that gives a little bit of context as to why we felt it was imperative that a conference like this be created.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That actually leads to my next question is, what inspired you to support the founding of the New Jersey IDD Youth Transition Conference?
Well, you did in large measure when we began working together, and you brought your expertise and your experience in supporting youth. And again, our organization had primarily been supporting adults over the age of 21 who had already transitioned from high school. But we had met people along the way, and certainly families of people along the way who continually expressed to us the need for more information, for more access to the resources that would hopefully await their family member after they graduated high school. So I think when you came with this idea of how do we compile the resources and the professionals, as well as the students and families who are part of New Jersey's many school districts, what do we need to do collectively to support them in making successful transitions? And for us too, the importance of supporting people where they are.
Mhm.
So not just waiting for something to happen and people come to us, but actually to be as proactive as possible in what is it that this community needs and how can we best be a part of meeting that need. And alongside that is our commitment to working with partners in the communities in which we work. We are very clear that we do not do this work alone, and we are only able to be effective in our work when we are successfully collaborating and partnering with other community members. And I really think that a big part of this conference is the coming together of community resources with the people, with the experts who are really dedicated to youth, to families, but also to their broader communities and the health of those communities.
Right. So you've mentioned earlier that Values into Action was founded in, I think it was 2007.
Mhm.
And so providing support coordination services for quite a number of years and being one of the original three, I imagine you have a lot of knowledge and expertise in when folks are coming into the adult system, right? What have you heard, or what do you, from your experience, think some of the most significant challenges that youth and families, youth with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and their family members are facing when they're transitioning into this adult world of services?
I really appreciate that question, Amy, and I think we all appreciate it even more so now that, as you know, Values into Action New Jersey has been invited to be a member of the Black IDD Consortium. And the information and the experiences that people are willing to share as part of that consortium, we hold in very high and close regard, and we're honored to be a part of that. That for me is a big part of the importance of the Youth Transition Conference, as well as other community and system resources, is um, many of us are lucky and privileged enough to have information readily available and accessible to us when we need it. And for some of us, even when we don't need it, it's there. We don't have to look very far. We don't have to flip through many pages. It's there. Um, that's not so for many members of other communities, particularly members of the Black community. And what we have learned is that there is significant disconnect, that there is the term silos, that oftentimes organizations that are designed to help the community members often do so in very fragmented or in siloed ways. I believe the same would hold true for members of the Brown communities and for other minority groups living in New Jersey. So I think it is incumbent upon those of us in the dominant culture to ensure that we use the resources that we have in making sure that this information, this support, education, making all of this accessible and available to people. And this really, again, highlights the importance of a conference like this, because in this way, what you and our partners in the Youth Transition Conference planning have been able to do is identify those resources, identify those stakeholders, and find ways to bring people together. And this was done amidst the global pandemic that was COVID-19. We found ways to do that, and putting together these resources in a way, again, that can be most accessible to the people who need it most and are often at risk of being the ones left out. So I think for me, that's one of the most significant challenges that face youth and their families. And I think we also have to acknowledge the teachers and the paraprofessionals working in schools who are confronted with these realities day to day. And imagine the frustration of not being able to get a student something that they need and something that you know is readily available to other students in other schools, right? So this conference is designed for them as well. that we want to make this accessible to teachers everywhere, but particularly those teachers who are committed to being there in the most disadvantaged of situations. So I'm really proud. I'm really proud of that. None of us are proud that these challenges continue, but I think those of us that are actively working in partnership and seeking guidance from the people with this lived experience and expertise, I think is really important, and something that, of course, is very important to Values into Action.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. Oftentimes we hear about, the term falling off the cliff, right? And that refers to kids when they're graduating, or I should say young adults when they're graduating, they just kind of disappear out of the system. So I love that you pointed out that, different groups experience different things and have access to different resources. And in a way, we hope part of the YTC's goal is to reduce that falling off the cliff experience for people.
Absolutely. Wouldn't it be great, and when we believe it possible, that nobody uses that term ever again, because it's just simply not the reality. That we don't fall off cliffs. What we do is we turn a corner, right? We may take a different road or a different route, but that person is accompanied
Yes.
by people, both people in their personal support system, but also the professionals whose job really is to work for them.
Mhm.
And we can do this. We know that we can accomplish great things, but it requires all of us. And I think the Youth Transition Conference should be one of many forums, but I think that, paving the way for other groups, other stakeholders to do things that are going to be helpful from the perspective of the students and their families.
Yeah, thank you. So you've mentioned stakeholders and resources. That actually leads me to the next question I have for you, which is what roles do partnerships with community organizations, schools, and government agencies play in the success of the NJYTC?
We couldn't do this without them. And it's really important that we remember that and hold that in the highest regard. And it's one of the many things I appreciate about you, and certainly April, as the co-leaders of the transition conference, as well as the other partners. But I think you have always been intentional, and it is really the way that we work as an organization. We see ourselves as one of what should be many resources in a person's life. And if we find that we are one of the only resources in a person's life, that becomes our first goal, right? So I think that we can't ever underestimate the power of community. And when we look at youth services, and the amount of funding that is available, what we should be seeing is absolutely more of us coming together, more of us sharing those resources. And as we learn from people, we need to do it better. The time for silos is over. What people need is an integrative, open system, partners communicating with one another, making sure that we're not duplicating, but that we are addressing the gaps, and that we are not placing the burden of identifying those gaps on people and their families, or even on the teachers, whose priority it should be to be focusing on that student, and on the learning and support that is going on in the classroom. And so those of us that surround that just need to be really, really aware of what our priorities are. And so I don't know if you can read the value statements. You of course know them because you live them. But the value statements up here, it is really about relationships with one another, respecting one another, being accountable to the people we are working for. And so I really believe that partnerships, no matter who they are or where they sit, are necessary to making sure that people and their families are served well in ways that are meaningful to them.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. Last question I have for you today is, do you have a vision for the future of the New Jersey Youth Transition Conference? Any ideas of like any new initiatives or expansions that you want to see come forth in the coming years?
It's a great question, and I think that the evaluations that we are lucky enough to receive from participants every year really helps to guide and set us to the next phase. And so we want to be sure, that our inspiration is truly going to be meaningful to the people who are attending and people who we hope benefit from the learning and the collaboration that happens at the conference. But I would say
Mhm.
more of this, and maybe instead of once a year, we figure ways to um, hold community forums, to be present with people where they are, when they need it. And I know with this conference, we have really sought to accommodate scheduling and making sure that information is available and accessible at different times of the day, different days of the week. And I think we need to continue that. But I think the inspiration would be that maybe in some point in the not too distant future, we don't even need the acronym IDD. It's a youth transition conference, and any student who wants information on what's next for them, any family member who needs guidance and support and education about the resources that are available for their disabled kids, but maybe for their non-disabled kids, that we continue to grow and through our collaborations, really just become embedded in this community as a helpful resource and a helpful space, a safe space, where people can really focus on making sure that their dream, whatever that may look like in terms of their learning and education, can be fulfilled, and that we can play some part in that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I love
Thank
that you mentioned the feedback, right, that we get from
Mhm.
people at the end of each year. This year, we were extremely intentional about incorporating that feedback. And so you'll see a different lineup of workshops and presenters this year than any of the years prior. And the reason for that is people were asking for very specific information and resources, for example, about housing, college options, and we had never touched base on those before. So it's really exciting that we're able to include them this year. Um, that wraps up our short Q&A today. Thank you for spending time with me, and audience watching us virtually, thank you for spending your time with us. We will be hosting workshops live for you this year on October 1st and 3rd, 2024 from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. You can find the workshop agenda lineup on our website, which is njyouth.transition.life. And we also have on October 4th a virtual resource spotlight session, which is a really fun new event that we've never done before. And we're highlighting all of the different providers that are members of Vendor Village. So we would love to see you there. Again, that information is on njyouth.transition.life. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.